Well, for our next storytellers, we'd like to invite David and Laurie. The first time we met David and Laurie was actually just a couple of months back in Vermont, where the mental health team was attending a conference organized by Reauthoring Teaching. And when we landed up there, we met pretty much everyone except David and Laurie. So we asked Peggy, was like, where's David and Laurie? And they said, oh, well, they've locked themselves up in a serene little beautiful cottage in Vermont, and they were working very hard to complete their book, which, I'm happy to say is now done and ready. So they, along with David Epstein, have actually co-authored a book called Narrative Therapy in Wonderland, Connecting with Children's Imaginative Know-How.
Today at the Room Full of Stories, David and Laurie will be talking about the fascinating world of working with children and illustrating the benefits of linking the real world with the imaginary one through the use of various tools such as transcript, letters, and videos.
David Marston is the director of Miracle Mile Community Practice and a member of the training staff at Pepperdine University. David has over 25 years of experience in working with young people and their families and has presented internationally on several occasions. David has also written on various aspects of narrative practice.
Laurie is a fieldwork coordinator at the USC Rossier School of Education and the medical program coordinator at the Miracle Mile Community Practice. Her fondness for young people dates to her 10 years as a public school teacher, and more recently, her work as a therapist in public mental health. So we have David and Laurie with us today at the Room Full of Stories.
We would like to begin by saying how pleased we are to be here in India and with our friends from Umeed. We had the pleasure of being with Jahan Zeb, Jill, Tanya, Ravi, Daisy, and Shaman in June in Vermont at what has come to be fondly referred to as Narrative Camp, hosted by Peggy Sachs. They gave us a preview of the warm welcome that awaited us in Mumbai. Thursday night, we had a chance to visit with Vibha and learn more about her vision for Umeed, from its modest beginnings to its far-reaching impact on so many lives today. Thank you for hosting us. We've enjoyed our first 2 days in Mumbai, and we are very much looking forward to our time with you.
Maybe you want to switch places?
Yeah.
We'd like to begin with a story, which we feel is appropriate. It takes place in our home city of Los Angeles, California. So once upon a time, a boy about 4 years old and his father walked into a cafe where David and I were typing at our computers in fits and starts, working on our writing project, Narrative Therapy in Wonderland. Sitting at a corner table, our cursors blinking expectantly, we envied the boy with his heaping scoop of Rocky Road ice cream with marshmallows, an apparent disregard for such adult concerns as calorie count. Upon finishing his last bite, he stood and wandered over to a small fountain nearby. His father guessed what he had in mind and, reaching into his pocket, pulled out an assortment of coins. He fished out a penny and handed it over. Making his way back to the fountain, coin in hand, the boy whispered something softly and reluctantly dropped it in. Back at the table, when asked what he wished for, the boy declared, to be a Ninja Turtle. His father smiled and gave him a second penny, and the ritual was repeated. What did you wish for this time? His father asked. A princess, the boy replied. I turned to David and sighed. Oh no, he's already been co-opted by patriarchy. To which David responded, maybe he wished to be a princess. But I wasn't so convinced. With his next penny, the boy returned and made a third and final wish for an animal. What kind? His father prompted. A hippopotamus, the boy announced. He then made one last trip to the fountain before they departed, kissing the ceramic stones on its outer edges, perhaps for good luck or as an expression of appreciation for its charmed properties. Father and son appeared equally satisfied, each having fulfilled a vital role in the theater that unfolded. It is no surprise that the things the boy wished for are undoubtedly different from those any adult would have dared dream up. For those of a more mature disposition, wishes are often of a calculable variety: a debt-free existence, a bigger home, a winning lottery ticket, weight loss, or perhaps love, all things potentially of this world, though some may pose longer odds than others. But for a child with wonder in his eyes, it is the impossible that is made plausible. The Mexican novelist and social activist Carlos Fuentes writes of the capacity that young people possess, not only to trust in the impossible, but also to transform their own capacities through flights of imagination. Though subject to school and especially the family, at that time of life, we have more freedom with regard to what binds us than at any other period. It seems to me this is because in childhood, freedom is identical to imagination. And since here, everything is possible, the freedom to be something more than the family and something more than school flies higher and allows us to live more separately than at the age when we must conform in order to survive, adjust to the rhythms of professional life, submit to rules inherited and accepted by a kind of general conformity. We were, as children, singular magicians. As therapists, we may marvel over children's imaginative triumphs, but given our own advanced age, it is unlikely we would recognize their fantasies as vital to the therapy hour or find ourselves inclined to invest wholeheartedly in their designs. If imagination were given some room, it would likely be for reasons other than its direct mobilization. The therapist might have more familiar notions in mind, such as building rapport, establishing safety, indulging a young person, or observing and interpreting projective play. And what need for imagination when protocols are already in place? I can name that problem in 3 notes: bipolar disorder, next patient, reactive attachment disorder, next ADHD, next OCD, and so on. Matters can be quickly settled, and what remains is to undertake prescriptive measures with the promise of serving up happy, secure, and focused children. But in making the world thoroughly readable, have we sacrificed its mysteries in the name of what is supposedly proven? Have we succeeded in locking away our own imaginations as professionals? Or might it be possible that problems, including those that are most impressive, can be tricked by ninja turtles, outwitted by feminist princesses, and even swallowed whole by hungry hippos, or as we heard from Daisy today, entrapped by spider monkeys who shoot nets from their mouths. Any encounter with a real problem would not likely draw such inspiration from the mind of an adult, but for a young person, it can be a no-brainer. Consider David's meeting with a young boy named Harry.
Prior to my first meeting with then 4.5-year-old Harry and his parents, Evie and Morris, I learned by telephone that Harry had been knocked down by 4 older boys and warned never to come back to school. But before hearing anything else about the problem, in the first meeting, I asked about Harry's virtues, or what David Epstein would call his wonderfulnesses. Here is what I asked his parents. Before we turn our attention to the problem, I'm wondering if you could introduce me to Harry's wonderfulnesses, those gifts that really stand out about him, those qualities that others may appreciate, those talents I might come to admire as I get to know him, and that might offer a preview of what he already has in hand to meet the problem with. Harry, I was told, was funny, had good dance moves, was creative, had an excellent vocabulary, was good at rhyming, was smart, was good at sports and especially hitting a baseball, was good-hearted and kind. He was someone who was nice to people. He was aware, and he had a good memory. And I asked for further detail. Now we're going to bring 2 volunteers up to help share a portion of a transcript from my first meeting with Harry and his parents. So if we can get our 2 thespians, Peggy and Ravi. So Laurie will function as the narrator. Ravi is Harry's father, Morris. And little Peggy here is 4.5-year-old Harry. So I think we could sort of sit down in the therapy session. That's great. So father and son. And I'll sit here.
Okay, I'll be the narrator.
You'll be the narrator off to the side. Okay, so we begin. I turn to Morris and Evie for further detail. And what is it about Harry's mind and the way he uses it that tells you he's smart?
David needs to learn more about Harry's gifts. He knows from experience there is no telling which among them will prove most useful.
He's already an amazing reader, and he follows adult conversations and can join in on a range of topics.
Morris goes on to further substantiate his claim of Harry's intelligence with stories about his school assignments and his advanced vocabulary. Both Evie and Morris respond with ease and provide supporting evidence for their abounding claims about Harry. Before long, they are fortified and ready to turn their attention to the problem.
Harry's been through a lot in a short period. We don't think it's just about what the 4 boys did. We talked to their parents, and they're not going to bother Harry again. We have seen to that. There are other things he's had to adjust to. I returned to work recently. His best friend Isaac got sick about a month ago, and we are hoping he's going to be okay. And we go out weekends, lately without him on mommy and daddy date nights, and he has a babysitter, which he's still getting used to.
Wow, that does sound like a lot. I'm sorry to hear about your friend Isaac.
Turning to Harry, Harry looks down.
Did all of this happen in a short period of time? And is that when fear came knocking? Is your dad right, Harry? Was it a lot all at once that seemed to bring fear into your life?
David relies on externalizing language to distinguish Harry from the problem.
Yeah.
With everything I'm beginning to understand about what you've been through, Harry, and the 4 naughty boys at school, and Isaac's illness, I suppose it would be enough to bring fear into anyone's life.
David is careful to acknowledge that Harry, even at 4.5 years of age, is no less subject to real stresses than anyone twice his age, or 10 times his age for that matter.
Has fear stolen fun from your life, Harry? Has it tried to get you to stop dancing and running fast and jumping high and having fun?
I can still run fast.
This is stated with enthusiasm.
You can.
David is taken aback by what might be considered an act of defiance in the face of the problem.
Do you want to see?
I'd love to see.
In mapping the effects of the problem, we are accustomed to eventually discovering the limits of its reach. Harry opens David's office door, which leads to a short hallway, and with little warning runs down the hallway and back. Twice.
That was fast. Only, could you do it again so I can time you?
Do it again.
He leans forward, readying himself.
Ready? Go.
Harry speeds to the end and back, not a long distance.
5 seconds.
Do it again.
David complies, asking Harry to hold on until the second hand approaches the top of the dial.
Ready? Go.
He runs even faster.
I think that was more than 4 seconds.
Just play along with it.
Oh, and
Harry seems satisfied with his time. In fact, to this day, it remains a world record for the Miracle Mile Community Practice Hallway. He jumps back on the couch with his mom and dad, appearing invigorated by his achievement.
Harry had arrived at the meeting in good enough spirits, but now appeared enlivened. He was actively supported in ways that speak to the collaborative nature of this approach and drawn to the center of the action, where his skills were recognized as most salient. We have learned from young people that if we do our part to set the scene for the performance of their talents and scholarship, they can assume the role of lead actor. I wondered if Harry was now prepared to address the problem. Harry, your dad told me in a note he sent that you already had a couple of ideas for dealing with fear before we even met. He told me how one time you got your bravery to get rid of fear, and then how another time you told fear to get lost. And what I'd like to know is, how'd you do it, Harry? How did you come up with these ideas? And how do you still manage to have fun and run, which you proved right here in my office today?
David underscores actions Harry has already taken in order to challenge any single storied account of him as helpless.
I just did it.
The thing is, Harry, isn't fear sneakier than that? If it were up to fear, wouldn't it decide kids should have no fun at all? That they should spend all their time at home keeping fear company, maybe even dreaming about fear while they're sleeping and listening to it first thing in the morning when they wake up?
David had been clued in by Morris and Evie that these are some of the very effects fear is having on Harry's life.
No.
He shouts this indignantly.
Has fear ever tried to sneak into your dreams, Harry? Does it wake you up in the morning instead of your mom and dad and tell you it's going to be a bad day?
He says nothing at first, and then suddenly stands up, sticks straight, and begins to speak.
You know what we could do? We could...
At that point, I had to hold on to my seat with one hand while writing as fast as I could with the other. I was heard repeatedly asking Harry to slow down, unable to keep up as he fired off one idea after another in rapid succession, each intended to exile fear. I sent an email to Harry the next day and, among other things, recounted, as best I could, Harry's own initiatives for dealing with fear. Number 1, telling fear to get lost. 2, using your bravery to kick fear out of your life. 3, creating a plane box to send fear flying away from your life. 4, shooting fear out of a cannon across the ocean and onto an island with pirates. 5, putting a button on fear to turn it into a flag. 6, making fear false hair so someone will take it and put it on someone else's head. 7, putting fear in a tissue box. In spite of my efforts to be a faithful scribe, I made myself answerable to Harry for any errors. Like anyone delivering dictation on an important topic, Harry valued his own creative input enough to see to it that every detail was in its proper place. Harry had more than a thing or two to say in response to my email. With Evie's help, he provided the following guidance.
Dear David, thank you for your letter. You made 2 mistakes, so please correct these. This is Harry. Please push the button on fear to turn it into an eagle. This is a correction for number 5. Number 6 should be, make a statue of me with fake hair so the fear will think it's me and go to that statue. But it's not me, it's a statue of me. Your letter made me smile. And I need to bring it to school because it's going to help other kids with their fears. They don't even know what a fear fighter is. Bye-bye. See you next time. If you need any help, then call up the police or Harry. Bye. See you soon. Harry.
That's for you.
You go.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it for the demonstration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Prior to this first meeting with Harry, his parents and teacher had taken it upon themselves to see to the problem and made every conceivable effort on his behalf. Speaking with the parents of the guilty parties, designing a safety plan, assuring Harry that he would be all right, reminding him of how much fun he used to have at school, keeping laughter in the house, and beyond all of these, attending to him in innumerable loving ways. The passive recipient of such soothing efforts, Harry was momentarily comforted and even became temporarily brave. But before long, found himself succumbing to fear once again. Imagine their relief to learn about Harry's capacities to face the problem himself. In our meetings with young people, entering Wonderland is not so much a physical departure. It is a
5 minutes?
It is a migration from the expected to the unexpected, from what might be considered the normal state of affairs to one that is decidedly at variance with it. We avail ourselves of the kind of fresh engagement that brings us to what the anthropologist Victor Turner calls the limen, or threshold. It is a point of entry that promises something novel by way of the subjunctive, or what is imaginable, versus what is plainly before us. This is where we are likely to encounter an action that Turner believes transgresses or dissolves the norms that govern structured and institutionalized relationships and is accompanied by experiences of unprecedented potency. Harry's ideas proved fruitful in just this way.
It is this sort of imaginative know-how we wish to reserve a space for in therapy with young people. Too often, adults, under the tutelage of professionals, adopt sincere proposals that are nonetheless time-worn, and in the end, leave little to the imagination. Sometimes it seems fewer and fewer ideas, structure, limit setting, positive reinforcement, modeling, boundaries, consistency, are recommended to wider and wider audiences with little regard for the diversity of family, community life, and culture. The effects of such one-size-fits-all solutions can be dulling for families and practitioners alike. Drawing inspiration from Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, we rely on young people who, with our assistance and the backing of loved ones, might show us something unforeseen. The resulting experience can be invigorating rather than burdensome, as they engage as partners in family life rather than as passengers, or worse, as empty vessels waiting to be filled up. Alice is anything but docile as she makes her way through a perilous world. Similarly, we depend on young people's capacities to arrive at well-considered positions as they come face to face with seemingly intractable problems. Once enlivened by our interest and cast as worthy protagonists, they establish sound platforms from which decisive action is made possible. By this means, they become compelling figures in unfolding dramas. Thank you.